Do not adjust your digital device. What you are about to see and hear may shock and appall you. Join our hosts as they encounter countless thrills, spills, chills, and hilarity as they explore the very weirdest in pop culture. The following media is so strange, so beyond the scope of what is normal, it will make you ask the question, why does this exist? Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Why Does This Exist? I'm Chris.
And I'm Rob.
And today we're going to be talking about, well, this is one of two parts. We will be talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! For the next two episodes.
Yeah.
This first episode, we're going to focus on the manga creation, cartoon, anime, whatever the hell you want to call it. We're going to talk about that wholesome, wonderful part that our childhood consisted of. And then in the next episode, we will be discussing the card game, since there's just so much ground to cover, and I guess some of the additional things too. But this is strictly the anime that we're going to focus on and the creation of this whole thing. You know what we are? Why Does This Exist? We're a show that talks about the very weirdest in pop culture, regardless of what it is. We discuss it. We've been on the air for quite some time now, so I'm not going to get into the whole thing. If you want to give us money, all the links are below in the descriptions and all that jazz. So if you want to do it, that's great. If you don't, I really couldn't care less. Best thing you could do for free to help us out is to just subscribe to the YouTube channel and I guess boost the algorithm in some way so that more people find this and do those things. Other than that, it really does not make a difference to me. Let's get stupid. That's the news. Here's the weather. You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge from a ragtag group of rogues. So let's get on with the goddamn show. Why don't you tell the people what the hell this goddamn thing is?
All right. So back growing up as a 90s kid, we had, Pokemon came out, when we were growing up, and Pokemon was kind of like this phenomenon when it came out. And it was really the first mainstream anime that everybody watched. No matter what part of what group of friends you had, everybody watched Pokemon. Literally, yeah. Girls, boys, everybody.
Yeah, nobody was safe. No one above the age of 5 really was safe.
Yeah,
from this thing.
And it was
even the pets were being dressed up as Pikachus. They didn't understand it.
Yeah. And so Pokemon was this huge thing. And
my favorite part was that the teachers could never teachers and adults could barely pronounce any of these shows, and they're not difficult to pronounce either.
No.
But I've seen so many adults just calling them Pokemans. So many kids.
You know what's a gold mine? Those Pokemans cards.
So many kids laughed as they got their cards confiscated by teachers who could not pronounce the names of the things they were confiscating.
Yeah.
Which only made you want to keep bringing them in so that you could hear the teachers botch the names.
Yeah.
I've also heard people call these things Yugimons and just get totally confused. Yes, I've heard Yugimons. And I've also heard yugioh and
yeah, I've heard that.
But from teachers, so it's worse.
Yeah.
Because then, of course, the kid, because in middle school, of course, the kids would always their response was always something like, "Mr. Cirillo, we didn't know," or "Mr. Cirillo, stop talking about yourself like that. This is a public school."
Yeah.
Or just something awful to that effect.
Yeah. So, that it became this phenomenon, and then in the early 2000s there was kind of a shift of everything became more darker and edgier, and basically Yu-Gi-Oh was the darker, edgier Pokemon. It was the new trend when it came out, in the
Kind
early
of.
2000s, and
I've
like,
never heard it put that way, but that you're
well,
kind of right.
yeah, it was like really like because it was like a little bit darker, edgier. The monsters weren't at like these cute little things anymore, really.
No, they
Uh,
look. A lot of them looked really badass. They had some cutesy ones, but
yeah,
like not super cute.
it was,
Like
and
maybe Karibo was like the cutest one, but it was just like Cousin It,
yeah,
really.
and uh, so what was? Well, I just lost my train of thought.
The monsters looked badass. It was darker than
Yes. Oh, so there
Pokemon.
was like more adult themes and stuff like that. So, and that was kind of like the shift of the 2000s in general with media, and I think 9/11 probably played a huge role in that because you could see like games or shows and other things that were running from like pre 2001 to after 2001. And I think we might have talked about this on the Sopranos episode because this is one of those shows. There's a definite tonal shift after 9/11 happened. um Things just became much darker and more adult. Things weren't as like happy, and things were, the world was a darker, scarier place, and
Mhm.
media reflected that. So we had Yu-Gi-Oh come along, which was again the edgier Pokemon, and most people that were into Pokemon kind of moved on from Pokemon to Yu-Gi-Oh. Uh,
Well, the
and
Yu-Gi-Oh series started in '98.
well, yeah, but it didn't come to
Like
this
we
country
didn't.
until the early
No,
2000s.
we didn't get it until 2000.
Yeah, because the manga came out in '96
Yeah,
originally. So we just we didn't get it in this country until like 2003 or something like that, or 2002. Um, and much like Pokemon, it debuted on uh, Kids WB, which was a Saturday morning cartoon block, which
right.
had
Well,
all
it
amazing
was
action and
dubbed by
cartoons and
well, it
anime.
was dubbed by 4 Kids Entertainment, which also did the
Yes,
Pokemon one. So I'm sure
yes,
that company specifically had a deal with Warner Brothers.
yeah, and so it came out, and like I said, it's darker than Pokemon. I think it kind of reflected the times, and most kids moved on to Yu-Gi-Oh, and it became it's a phenomenon of itself. Not as big as Pokemon, obviously. I think Pokemon really was never topped in its popularity, and it's I mean, even today, it's still like probably one of the most popular video games out there, especially with like Pokemon Go and stuff like that. Everybody plays that.
Yeah, no, nothing beats Pokemon. It's the king, right?
Yeah,
It's the reigning and defending champion at this point in time.
yeah. Whereas Yu-Gi-Oh did not have the same longevity as Pokemon. A lot of people still play the card game, but it's become more of a niche card game. Magic the Gathering is still the preeminent trading card game
Yes,
available.
which we talked about in depth, like I think at least a good year ago. It was about a
Yeah.
year and a half ago. So you could check that out, and it's there's 2 very long episodes.
Yes.
The longer one is the second one when we're complaining about how shitty the company that makes the cards is.
It
But
still continues to be.
yes, they will never learn their lesson.
Nope. Um so this we want to talk a little bit more about the anime itself because the card game is a whole different story, and the anime is so much different from the card game. Like the
Oh
rules of the card game don't actually apply to the anime, and there's like been running
no,
jokes about that.
there's
uh
basically no rules in the anime. In
no,
the anime, I don't
no,
like you just put things down. There's no rhyme or reason to
yes,
anything. You just put the cards down, regardless of what you have of what their casting cost is,
yeah,
or what sacrifices you have to make, or any actual. There's no actual planning other than, hey, I got this card. Let me put it down now, and
yes,
then if it's a trap card, let me just hope that they forget about it, which
yeah,
they always do.
uh
I will say
yes,
that
they
I
oh
will
yes.
I,
Which is hilarious.
I will say that that at least with when they got to the video games, at least with the first one, Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories, it was the game is amazing and it's one of my favorites ever. Specifically because the gameplay is the TV show
Yeah,
rules
yeah, it follows the TV show. You could fucking just merge cards together without polymerization, and it's to make a new monster. It was like,
without rhyme or reason.
yeah, and it was
like
OP.
yeah, like most of the game was just you combining your entire hand just to see what turns into like a twin-headed thunder dragon.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then once you can do that, you're taking things just to see if you can make like a black meteor dragon. And once you can do that, then like you win. That's pretty much
Yes,
it.
but I don't. We'll talk about more about the video games when we talk about the card game.
Yeah, we're
Let's
getting ahead
focus.
of ourselves.
We're gonna focus on the show, which was it was a pretty okay show. It wasn't the greatest thing ever, you know. Looking back on it, it hasn't aged that well. It's just,
No,
you know,
I was watching it like over the past week like just to just reintroduce myself to it for this episode, and I remember being really excited to watch it, and then I started watching a few episodes and just my brain immediately started poking holes in all of the logic,
yeah,
and um and then I just skipped ahead to other episodes because I was like, okay, well maybe this gets better. And it really doesn't. Like as I'm watching it, I'm just like, this is a really bad show. Like, how could I
I
like
wouldn't call it
how
really
did I
bad.
watch this? It's really hokey.
It's cheesy, and you got to remember it was a show for kids.
No, I
So
know that, but I'm watching it and I'm like, this is stupid.
yeah,
like like
and it was very much
like I was kind of watching it just like, how did I like this?
like all the main characters have like heavy plot armor. You know, they always somehow pull a victory out of their ass, even though when they're like on like literally on like the throes of death.
Yes, like
Um,
Joey doesn't even know what his cards do and he
yeah, he
manages
doesn't
to
even
win.
basically doesn't even know how to play the game, and he just fucking somehow wins
Yeah,
against like pro players.
yeah, like he's basically started playing the game like 2 days before the Duelist Kingdom tournament, and he manages to like make it to the finals somehow.
Yeah,
Meanwhile, these other people have been like champions all wherever they went for like years,
yeah, like
and
literally
they managed to
international
like
champions.
yeah, and they managed to like lose to Joey Wheeler.
It'd be like if some like rando from your friggin' local magic shop decided to enter like the Magic like Champions tournament or whatever, and like go against all the pro players, and he only doesn't even have like a good deck. He just plays local Magic on Friday nights or something, you know?
Not even like he's more like the guy that you show Commander to one time at your
Oh,
tabletop.
yeah,
And it's more like the guy who shows up with the precon, like, and um, still needs, like, the sheet with, like, the basic rules in front of him
yeah,
to know, like, where all the different, like, zones are and everything, and then, like, enters it in a modern tournament and then, like, makes it to, like a top 8 or something.
yeah.
Or worse.
Um,
Well, no, it's not like the no, nobody gets that lucky in Legacy. Never mind.
yeah. Uh, well, no, Legacy is like you have to pay to win in that. Like, you want a
Yes.
good deck that's going to survive in Legacy, you got to spend some money.
Yeah. Well, anyway,
Anyway,
we're not anyway, different card game.
yeah, totally different.
Totally different. We'll get to like we're talking about Yu-Gi-Oh. So as I'm watching this, I mean, it's basically all like for some reason there's no parents ever.
Yeah,
It's just
you can see Yugi's grandfather, but that's
that's
it.
it. Yeah, but he's a grandparent. It's not the same.
And the only other freaking, I mean, you have like Seto Kaiba and his brother Mokuba, who always gets kidnapped, and then
Yeah, Mokuba is the most useless character
he really is.
ever.
And then you have Joey, who's got his sister who's blind. And that's the reason why he like joins the friggin' Duelist Kingdom tournament, is so he can like get the prize money to pay for his sister's surgery to make her eyes work again or something. I don't really know. It's some
I
kind of MacGuffin fucking magic medicine.
Yeah, I guess she like gets her eyes replaced with like donor eyes.
Cyber eyes.
I guess it's that
We're in
surgery. I don't
Cyberpunk
know.
2077. Fuck it.
Yeah, or maybe it's just really just cataract surgery and like they've blown it completely out of proportion
I'd
because
like to
they're
also
11-year-old kids.
I would
They're
like
like
also
some
like to
well
point out that
We never
Kaiba
really
is
get their age, but by the way, we
no.
like they're
I
like
always
middle to high school
they're
ish.
high school age, I think, because Taya has a job, so there's no way she's 11 years old and working. She works as a waitress, so
Okay, yeah.
they're like high school age. But that still doesn't explain the fact that Seto Kaiba, who's also high school age, is also the CEO of a multinational company. Like at
Yeah, it's
16 or 17.
well, it's not even that. Why isn't he going to like a really expensive private school
Uh,
if he's going to like
Well, I
school
mean,
at all?
it's Japan. It's Japan.
Or
It's a
like,
little bit different,
well,
like
wouldn't he be
culture wise with
homeschooled?
education. But um, that still doesn't explain uh how he's the friggin'
Hello?
CEO.
Oh, there you are.
Like, by the way, no. I guess. Oh, it's kind of like said that he is like he inherited the company from his dead parents.
I was gonna
Uh,
say that's about the only way. You'd have to have like the Disney like thing where like
but
his
like
parents died
even
and he
even
inherited
with
the
that though,
money.
he's still a child. It's like how the hell like didn't he have some proxy or something that is like like run the companies of age?
Yeah, wouldn't there be like an Alfred type butler or something like that to
Yeah, I
like
mean,
like I feel
Kaiba's basically Batman
like
at this point.
yeah, like wouldn't like well Batman if he was an asshole and like didn't want to help people.
I mean, Batman kind of is an asshole, though.
Well, yeah, but like Batman wants to help people. I mean, Kaiba kind of ish does eventually, but like not really.
Well, he starts off as like a bad guy, but it's explained that it's because he's possessed by some clown demon
Oh God,
fucking shit. I
it's
don't. That was
just
a very strange
it's a
arc.
yes, it's a really lame excuse for like why he's a jerk. I'm
Yeah,
like it
I
makes
think
way more sense if he was just a douche.
so. This is goes to like one of the the differences between the manga and the uh and the anime is that the manga is much darker in its themes and I think explains shit a little bit better. I think they had to change a lot of stuff for the anime
Oh, they
because
had
in
to
the
change a
manga, for
ton.
example, Yugi, like Yami Yugi, who's like we'll get to in a second, it's basically like the main character's alter ego, who's the resurrected pharaoh from Egypt. Um, but in the manga, he actually kills people, like
Yeah,
straight up kills people. Whereas obviously a children's cartoon, they couldn't put that, so they changed it to he banishes them to the shadow realm, basically.
yeah.
Um,
In the manga and the Japanese version, the Shadow Realm does not exist. The Shadow Realm is just a person being murdered.
yeah,
Like, because they show them getting murdered too. Um, and like the tone, like there's way more like adult sub themes, obviously from the murder, but like other things too. I mean, it's also Japan, so like being a pervert is funny for some reason in that culture. um, but whenever there's like like they do have shadow games, but like in the English dub, the like like we just said, the penalty is you go to you're banished to the shadow realm. So like your mind is like imprisoned in the shadow realm, and you basically go into a coma, and which you can eventually get out if someone else goes into the shadow realm and like find and like helps you or like wins a shadow game for your soul or mind or whatever, and then it's okay. But in the real version, but like in the anime, in like the Japanese version, like it's just like your life is on the line. So
yeah.
it's a daily game, yeah. Survivor Series 98. No, okay. Um, but that's what you end up getting from that. Or also, like we said, a lot of other things change, like deadly weapons and things like that. Like in the anime, in the Japanese version, you will get like you'll see characters with like guns and knives and stuff like that. Where in the English dub, they just like their hands will be like in the same pose, but it'll just be like a closed fist. where like there's just
Yeah.
no gun there or knife or anything like that. They'll just be very angry, it seems. Um there is one in particular that's like really disturbing where um there's an episode where there's like a mugger or something that's going after Taya in the beginning, I believe.
Yeah, yeah, it's one of the
And
first episodes.
yeah, and in like in the English version, like he's a mugger and he's like, "Give me your money," and she's like, "No, no, I like, please don't hurt me." And he's like, "I'm gonna get my money or whatever." And then like they banish him to like Yami Yugi shows up, they banish him to the Shadow Realm, and that's that. In the Japanese version of this, he's holding a video camera and he's like a pervert. Like, and he's just like, you're gonna do exactly what I want you to do for me. And like it's very obvious that he wants her to do something sexual so he can film it. And well, Yamayugi shows up and does not put him into the Shadow Realm. Instead, he like, well, you tell it better than I do, but he straight up murders the son of a
They
bitch.
basically play a game where he starts pouring a drink, and I forget what the actual like premise of the game is, but Yami basically, while he's pouring this like super high test vodka, it's like Russian vodka, Yami puts a Zippo lighter that's lit on his hand so that he can't move his hand, because if the Zippo falls, it'll fall and burn the or blow up the alcohol. And so he keeps pouring this bottle until it's like literally pouring all over the table, all over him, and then eventually the lighter falls and he bursts into flames and dies. And it's
Yeah,
like very like graphically depicted in the manga.
this is a kid show.
So yeah, it was way different when the show came out, and they definitely changed a lot of stuff to make it more kid friendly. Um, but Kaiba, like, he becomes this anti-hero uh after like he gets his ass kicked by Yugi. It's like several times actually, not just once. And then eventually like he basically has to win by like cheating at one point. Like he steps on the edge of the friggin' castle and says, "Oh, if you win right now, you'll blow me up and I'll fall off the castle and die. So do you want that on your conscience?"
Some might say yes.
Apparently in the original, he actually threatened to just jump off if he lost, but in the dub he said that the shockwaves would like throw him off the edge. So again, that's
Oh.
another change.
Yeah, there's some that like obviously it makes sense to change to like make it more like kid friendly and Americanized.
Yeah.
Um, but there's others that really don't make a whole lot of sense. Like there's one arc where like I think it's like Yuki does I think it's um like I think it's the Battle City one, but um like Joey wants to like I think in the original um I think in the original Joey knows what the other person's strategy is. So he wants to go tell Yugi to like give him an edge, and Yugi decides that he doesn't want the help. And then for some reason in the American version, they change it like where Joey just simply doesn't know what the like what it is, or he wants to like save or something to do with the Red Eyes Black Dragon for some reason.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's like the person's gonna rip up Joey's Red Eyes Black Dragon so he can't tell Yugi. Meanwhile,
Oh
it
yeah.
would have made Yugi look like meanwhile there was really nothing wrong with the original like plot, but they chose to change it anyway. It's something like that. But yeah, outside of those strange things, the manga is like far more violent and more sadistic. But this is like, and to do that, to talk about that, we'd have to kind of start at the beginning. But like, the creator of Yu-Gi-Oh, who unfortunately is no longer with us, he passed away on the 4th of July of 2022. He was at the age of 60. He was trying to save three people from drowning, and he unfortunately went. Um, but uh, the fella's name is Kazuki Takahashi, also known as Kazuo. Takahashi. Um, he published Yu-Gi-Oh in Shonen Jump, and it had become a manga. It was originally a manga, and it ended up. Which, for those of you who don't know, a manga is just like a Japanese comic book. It's read
Yeah.
backwards from American stuff, so you would read it like back to front, and you would read some of the panels a little
Nature of the
differently
Japanese
too.
language is why it's,
Yeah.
in yeah, it's just the way they write is, and read is from back to front.
hmm
So
So
it's
anyway, so so Takahashi ends up he like just as a kid he was always drawing just like the other artwork of like manga that he liked. So like Ultraman, Tiger Mask, Yamamoto, and Devilman and Kamen Rider and stuff like that. Um, just like most kids, or like most creative kids, or like the artsy types. If you like, if you liked comic books, you would just like draw your comic book heroes, right? Like Spider Man or something
yeah.
like that. Like we've all done it, and he like he always wanted to be like to do something creative with like art, and he wasn't like most creatives. He wasn't the best student because he was probably like way smarter than everybody else in the class, and he just preferred to like do his like doodles and artwork and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, like his teacher was like very mean about it. So like his teacher basically called him like the word like I mean the translation is the poop machine that knows nothing except eating, sleeping, and pooping in front of the other students, which it's probably way worse than that. That like if like whatever the actual one it whatever like when you say it in Japanese, it's probably way like harsher. Where like the American translation just kind of sounds like, well, not that bad.
Yeah.
Um, but it's probably just like it would probably be like a teacher just telling like a 6-year old like like wow, look at this piece of shit. He's never gonna do anything in his life. You're a loser, Jimmy. You're an absolute loser. Meanwhile, Jimmy is like 6 years old drawing Spider-Man. Um so basically Takahashi just like was like, you know what, I'll just show like I'm just gonna do it anyway to spite you. So he starts drawing like he starts getting better at this manga and he starts drawing more stuff and he like starts he keeps getting better and instead of being and he wants to be an animator. He submits to go be an animator at this like production company, Tezuka Productions. He doesn't make it, but he starts like designing like corporate logos and like things like that.
Yeah.
And then and then he's like meanwhile he's also drawing his manga, so he starts submitting his manga to publishers because it's really cool, and he starts getting into like Shonen Jump and stuff like that, and eventually they end up like publishing the Yu-Gi-Oh stuff, and it starts getting serialized in Shonen Jump, and it did very well and sold super like really like awesome.
Yeah.
um and it just takes on a life of its own. But the Yu-Gi-Oh manga came to be that he wanted to do a horror one when he was like planning it out. Like he wanted to draw like a horror manga, and like there was something that wasn't quite connecting, and he also had like a love of just playing like board games and card games and game development stuff like that. So when he instead of making it about monsters, he made it about this game and he threw the monsters into it. So he used like he switched the theme from like these monsters and he took the horror elements and he was like it's a battle game where the monsters are fighting each other
Hmm.
and then it started becoming a little bit better.
Yeah.
And also he wanted it to be like a fight he wanted it to be like a fighting manga, and he was but there was also like an oversaturation of fighting manga. So it's like, well, this isn't going to stand out anyway if like even if I do this fighting manga, like, oh wow, it's monsters that are fighting. What's the big freaking deal?
Um,
Like, how do I make this original? And he's like, what if the main character doesn't hit anybody and also wishes that he would? But when he started thinking about like the game stuff, he was like, oh, that's how he wouldn't like he was just kind of like, well, how do I make my character not hit anybody in this fighting manga? And then we was like, oh wait, I can make it a game and I can make the
yeah,
monsters fight from the game so that the characters don't actually fight, but the monsters fight.
yeah,
Okay, that works. And then he starts throwing that in there, and it just like snowballs into this mega thing.
yeah,
But he also liked the superhero element from the manga that he enjoyed as a child. So that's where he kind of brought Yugi and Yami Yugi in there because like Yugi is not a strong character initially. He's like a weak little kid. He's short.
yes,
He's he's obviously not strong. He meets Joey and Tristan like because they were picking on him and he couldn't do anything.
yeah,
Like, I mean, he just has the worst friends, really.
yeah,
And like he never really learns how to defend himself until he gains the confidence and like also kind of like gets on the same wavelength as the Yami Yugi spirit when he unlocks that.
yeah,
And yeah, so like the other thing from there is like the superhero things from Takahashi's childhood manga is that he also wanted the main character to become the hero
yeah,
when he was like playing the game. So that's kind of what he is. Like the names like in in Japanese, like like he based Yuki and Januki on the Japanese word yugioh, which is Japanese for friendship. And that's kind of how that comes in there. So there's like the friendship,
hmm,
and so there's like Yugi and Dark Yugi, which would be Yami Yugi essentially. That was long
yes,
winded. My apologies, folks, for the two people left,
yeah.
because I've probably run off everybody by now. So I mean, we went from
Watch.
10 to 2. Oh boy.
Um, I mean, you were saying like about Yami, you know, he's like basically the spirit of this pharaoh. So it turns out that like Duel Monsters is the card game in the show, and it's based off of a ancient Egyptian uh game where like wizards in ancient Egypt, magicians would actually summon real monsters to fight each other.
Yes.
And so it was kind of picked up, and I think Kaiba Corp is actually one of the big like Kaiba Corp develops a lot of technology for the duel, which is hilarious because they have this advanced like hologram technology that they use that could be like applied to like so many different like military applications, but they use it for a children's card game.
No, of
Um,
course. It's
which
kind
is
of like
also it's
it's kind of like Tony
hilariously
Stark if it well maybe more like Tony Stark than Batman.
yeah, it's hilariously important, this card game. Duel Monsters is like kids like are allowed to like miss school so they can go to tournaments and stuff like that. Um which is like basically what the friggin' the Duelist Kingdom tournament is that they all just like ditch school to go to this island where the creator of Duel Monsters, Pegasus, Maximilian Pegasus, lives. And like it's like a giant tournament whoever wins the tournament gets to fight basically it fight Pegasus and then get all this like prize money and stuff. It's
Like
basically like
it's
he's basically like evil Willy Wonka essentially.
I was gonna say it's kind of like um it's kind of like Twisted Metal for kids, basically.
Yeah,
Because
kind of.
like Pegasus is basically Calypso, where like
Yeah,
he'll like the prize money will essentially grant whatever wish it is. I think it's like $3 million or something crazy like that. And like there's no kid. I mean, there's no parents. There's adults, but there's no well. I don't know if they're parents. I would assume that if you're a parent in the Yugi verse, then you're just dead for some reason. You have kids and then you just die.
yeah,
Like that's that's it. there's really no characters who have kids. We do see adults, but they're usually just bodyguards, so we assume they have no children. One of the other things that got censored is there's some episode where like Yugi's mom like wishes him good luck because he's supposed to be going on a date with Taya or something, and he's nervous. And then he gets confidence when like Yami Yugi like kind of shows up and gives him a pep talk or something. But in the English version, his mom's just not there for some reason. They just removed her completely. So
Yeah,
they're like, no, no, no. This is America. We need the orphans to we need to keep the orphans strong. Like
yeah.
like no parents in this show. We're following Disney rules. So for some reason, every parent is just dead for I don't for reasons we don't seem to have explained. But yeah, Duelist Kingdom, you end up playing against Pegasus, who Pegasus is also playing for himself, also because for him to win the tournament, even though he's the final boss, which I don't know why you even need to have the tour. I think because I think his point is that he wants to beat Kaiba.
Well, no, he's looking for
And
Millennium
he's also
objects.
that's also what it is he's looking for the Millennium objects
So the
so that
Millennium objects are for, like these ancient Egyptian fucking artifacts that give people magic powers, basically, and they all do different things. Like Yugi's puzzle box is what contains the spirit of the pharaoh who makes him Yami Yugi, and then Bakura has the Millennium Ring, which contains the spirit of like evil Bakura or Bakura, and then Pegasus has the eye, which allows him to read people's minds. Like they have all kinds of crazy shit. So Pegasus
yeah.
wants these other Millennium objects. So that's why he kind of makes the whole tournament to try to like lure in the Millennium people.
Yeah, so he wants to get all these things, and it's not really like a world domination thing, which I think is why Bakura wants them. But we that's
Yes,
kind of like the big plot twist is that Bakura was like the bad guy all along,
yeah, he's like
and like
the bigger
Pegasus
bad.
was yeah, and like Pegasus was really more of a sympathetic character because he lost his fiance and like I think it's like some kind of terminal illness or something or it's assumed to be a terminal illness, and he wants to like resurrect her in some way with the Millennium items, or he wants
Right.
to like try to, and he thinks that this is his way of like doing this. But Pegasus has probably the he has the coolest deck that is the most useless in the real world. Like
Yeah.
which is comprised of Relinquish, Thousand Eyes Restrict, and the Toon World. And on the show, like they make the Toon monsters to be
All
like these indestructible things that like can't be like stopped in any way, shape, or form unless you get rid of the Toon world. And
right.
meanwhile, when you play the card game and you play with the Toon monsters, like it's the worst thing. Like, yeah, they kind of do that. Like, they kind of act like they would in the show, but you have to pay life to like, you have to pay life points to even keep them there. So you can kill yourself just by having a Toon monster, like several Toon monsters on the field, not being able to do anything. And you have
Yeah.
to, I believe you have to pay life points to activate Toon World too. But I don't remember. Like I just remember like when they were doing the structure decks, they released the Pegasus. They released two structure decks. I think it was the Pegasus and the Joey one. And I
Yeah.
remember people like thought the Joey one was okay, but like everyone wanted the Pegasus deck
Yeah, because of like
because that
Thousand
was
Eyes Restrict and Relinquished, and we thought it was all OP as fuck, and it wasn't.
well, yeah, and we got yeah, that's the gist of it. We got to kind of have the Toon World, and like you could get it in the next set, which was Magic, which was Spell Ruler. Um, and you but like you could get it early and you could get all of it like with the structure deck Pegasus, which was awesome. And
Yeah.
that's like one difference, that's like one big difference between Yu-Gi-Oh and Magic is that Yu-Gi-Oh tends to do a lot of these products right, and like where Magic will like try to like cut corners and like screw you over so that they force you into buying more stuff from them.
Yeah.
Where like Yu-Gi-Oh will just say, "Here you go, here's everything, like
Yeah.
have fun." Um, but like yeah, you get we all got the Pegasus deck except for my one friend, and everyone was like, and everyone made fun of him for getting the Joey deck, but my friend wanted the Red Eyes Black Dragon.
Yeah.
So we all made fun of him for getting the Joey deck. Meanwhile, the minute that we start to play against each other, he like beats all of us because we're like we can't even use the Toon World to do the Toon Monsters, and we're like,
Yeah.
this is like it's like it was like in A Christmas Story where like he solves the Orphan Annie puzzle and he's like super excited and then he reads it out loud and it's just an ad for fucking Ovaltine
Yeah.
and he's like, what is this bullshit?" So after that everybody went and like wanted to buy the Joey deck because the Pegasus deck was just useless.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like just another like example of how the show's game was not anything where near close to what the real actual card game was.
Well, this was also in the earlier stages of the internet where like you couldn't really like find spoilers too frequently or like
Yeah,
I mean I guess you could, but I was maybe like 12 or 13 years old at the time, so we weren't even really thinking about that. We just wanted to like we just couldn't wait to buy it to see what
there
it does.
there is
And
one thing from the
like
anime. Sorry, go
so
ahead.
yeah, so I mean it was really just like we just knew that the Toon World stuff was going to be in there, but we had no idea like how the cards worked. We're like today you would just go on you would just go online right away, look up a spoiler, and then like be able to judge for yourself before even like spending a dime. But back
Yeah,
then you were just like, oh, oh, you were just like, oh my god, it's coming out. Like you'd see an ad in like the magazine, and you would say, oh my god, it's coming out. I got to go to the card store on Wednesday. Oh man, it's coming out in August. Like I gotta be there. I
yeah,
gotta go. Like, and you'd buy it, and then you'd go home with it, and then you'd either have a great time or you'd realize that you bought like a bunch of garbage.
yeah. There's one thing from the anime that I wish they actually did make it to a game, and that is remember the Dungeon Dice Monsters arc?
Yeah, that's like right after Duelist Kingdom.
Yeah, I think it was filler because they were hadn't like gotten up to the Battle City tournament yet in the manga, or like it was they were waiting for like parts of the manga to come out in America and be translated before they released it.
Something like that.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure the Dungeon Dice Monsters thing was filler, but it was actually a really cool little arc where basically Yugi gets challenged to play this other game that's not Duel Monsters but is similar but uses dice. And I wish they somehow made that into a game because that would have been amazing.
Yeah, I don't know if there was like a video. I feel like this was part of one of the video games, but I
I don't
don't
think so.
remember.
But there was Yu-Gi-Oh! War of the Roses on PS2 had a
Yeah, that's the one
similar
I'm thinking of.
yeah, it had a similar concept, like, but it wasn't the exact same thing. Like, you could, I think, move like your monsters around a board, like with your cards. So it was kind of like that, like Dungeon Dice Monsters, but like with like Yu-Gi-Oh cards. It was a weird game. It was kind of fun, but it was a very strange thing. It wasn't like regular Yu-Gi-Oh.
I
Um,
I didn't really understand how to like actually play it, and I always did it wrong. So like I didn't play that game for very long. Like I think I ended up just probably reverting back to like Forbidden Memories when I was like after like two attempts.
yeah, I
Also,
mean, Forbidden Memories was like the best one.
yeah, by far, I would love if they just did like a remaster of
They
that.
they had like I forget what it was called. There was a Yu-Gi-Oh game on the Game Boy Advanced. Oh, there was actually a Dungeon Dice Monsters game. It was on
I
Game Boy.
Oh, huh. I missed that one.
Yeah, so did I. I would have fucking loved to play that. Damn it. Now I'm pissed off.
I wonder if they ever did make a product of that like we just were not around for because we just kind of outgrew it.
The worldwide edition, Stairway to the Destined Duel. I think that was the one that covered the Battle City tournament,
They have
except in video game form.
they have really weird like names for the video games that have like nothing to do with Yu-Gi-Oh at all.
Yeah, yeah. and there actually hasn't been a Yu-Gi-Oh video game in quite some time.
Huh.
I think they have recently came out Yu-Gi-Oh Master Duel, which is just like the trading card game except like a video game of it. And it's like free to play, much like the Magic the Gathering, like
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Magic MTG duels or whatever.
Arena.
Magic Duels or Arena. No, Duels was the old one, and then they released
Yeah.
Arena.
Yeah. Well, Arena is like just they it was real. Arena was really cool in the beginning, and it's terrible now. It's like it's unplayable.
Yeah, it's very pay to win, which all those free games usually are.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so Forbidden Memories was like I don't want to get too much into video games. We could talk about that more when we talk about the card game, but that was always the best one.
Yeah.
Um, so I didn't watch GX. Like I only watched the original Yu-Gi-Oh. But there are actually a bunch of spin-off series of Yu-Gi-Oh. There was GX,
Oh yeah. There's a ton.
5Ds, Zexal, Arc V,
What the hell is a
Vrains.
Zexal?
I have no idea. Sevens and Go Rush.
Go Rush?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, there's quite a bit of Yu-Gi-Oh anime. None of them, I think GX kind of got popular in America for a little bit, but none of them really reached the like popularity of the original series in
I
America.
remember seeing commercials for Yu-Gi-Oh! GX and just thinking, this is still happening.
Yeah, I mean it was not as good as the OG one.
Yeah. There's all. I mean, there's a few movies too, but I've never seen them.
Yeah,
Like I think there's
yeah, I haven't seen them either.
three. Yeah, I think there's two or three. There's the Yu-Gi-Oh movie, which I I don't even know if was this released in America. It must have been.
Yes, it was. There
Apparently,
was one of the movies were released in America. I don't remember the actual.
1999, which I never saw this. I'm surprised I never saw this. Then there was Yu-Gi-Oh! The movie Pyramid of Light. Um, Yu-Gi-Oh! No, that's a miniseries. Capsule Monsters. I don't know what the hell that is. Bonds Beyond Time. It's a 3D movie. Oh boy. And the last one, it seems, was in 2016. The Dark Side of Dimensions.
Pyramid of Light was the one that was like big in America. Came out at like the height of Yu-Gi-Oh's popularity in 2004.
I remember the trailer for that one vaguely.
Yeah, I didn't watch it.
Well,
But
at that point, I had outgrown Yu-Gi-Oh.
I was
Well,
still kind of into it, but I had really was starting to like really move into Magic the Gathering at that point.
yeah, I had all. I mean, well, we'll get to that in the trading card episodes, but well, there was that. Let's just. I don't know if I can't speak for every Yu-Gi-Oh environment, but well, they were an unsavory bunch. The Yu-Gi-Oh trading card community.
Yeah.
Not not the nicest people. I also was like not a very nice person at this point in time. Like there, like thievery was rampant
Oh
in
yeah.
in Yu-Gi-Oh. Like it was bad, like very bad.
Yeah, it brought out the worst in people.
Yeah, yeah. Anytime anyone would say, "Let me see your cards. You can hold my deck." Yeah, yeah. You guys remember that? You all know what that meant. Either you were gonna rob somebody or someone was gonna rob you or try. So it got pretty ugly, and well, I did my share of thievery, and then one day it really bit me in the ass, and after that I stopped playing
Yeah.
because I realized just I realized how much it was going to cost me to try to even buy back the things that were gone, and this was at the time when it was expensive to buy singles. Where by now they overprint everything because they want to make the game affordable and accessible to everybody. So like even secret rare cards are really not worth that much money anymore.
Yeah.
But at the time, they certainly they would set you back quite a bit. So yeah, if they're we'll talk more about that on the next episode.
Mhm.
But yeah, we didn't really get too much into the characters of Yu-Gi-Oh, and also like we didn't really get into their signature monsters, which I would like to dive into before we end up before we wrap this thing up.
Yeah, so I mean, we talked a little bit about Seto Kaiba and Yama Yugi. Kaiba is, of course, his like main. His big ones are the blue eyes white dragons, and he wants to own all the blue eyes in the world.
Which
Um,
there's only 4 of, and he ends up owning 3 out of 4.
yeah,
Yugi's grandfather ends up owning the 4th one because, like, a friend from his archaeology days, yeah, somehow this old man, like, made his money as an archaeologist years ago, discovered the Millennium items and, like, dual monsters from, like, many, many years ago.
yeah,
Like, so long ago that Kaiba still had parents.
Huh,
Um, and he's exploring these ancient Egyptian ruins and everything, and him and his pal end up like discovering the Millennium items. There's like a cave in, like they discover all of the Egyptian secrets because they happen to be in the right tomb, and wouldn't you know it, the tomb collapses. So like all of this like history is totally lost to time, and
yeah,
they have to get out. So what do? Instead of trying to escape, they decide that they'll pass the time by playing cards because they brought their decks with them for some strange reason. They brought their decks with them to this archaeological dig. So, okay. They play a duel, something happens, he saves his life, and he gives him a blue eyes white dragon, his friend. And Kaiba wants it. Kaiba doesn't get it. Kaiba steals it, rips it up anyway, which is really stupid because he already has it. He already stole it. He has enough money to like just cover it up. Not that there would be like, well, I don't know, maybe in this world there would be like a giant scandal that would ruin Kaiba and Kaiba Corp because he stole a blue eyes. But his excuse for this is like so stupid. It's and like they point this out in the best way to watch Yu-Gi-Oh, which is the abridged version, and
yes,
we'll get to that at the very end. And they point this out because his reason to rip up the 4th blue eye so that he has all of them is so that it could never be used against him, which one, that's so stupid that it makes no sense. 2, it's a card game, which I don't know, I guess in this world it is the lifeblood of the global economy.
yeah, pretty much.
And like, what, you already stole it and you have it in your possession, and you have enough money to like make it go away and like shush people. So I mean, he has enough money to like put a hit out on Yugi's entire like band of merry people and his grandpa. So like, why not just keep the 4th blue eyes and make up a bullshit story as to how you got it?
Yeah,
It makes no sense. Anyway, that's all I have to say about Kaiba.
yeah.
But we have
Um,
him. We have Pegasus, which we've mentioned
yep,
briefly.
yeah. Who, again, he's got the Millennium Eye, and his monsters were all like OP as fuck because he's the creator of dual monsters, which is hilarious because like imagine like being at a magic tournament and you're just like going against the CEO of fucking Wizards of the Coast.
And
Like
he also with a custom deck that he built just for him that's super OP.
yeah, it's not
And they're the
balanced at
only
all.
Yeah, and they're the only versions of these cards that exist.
Yeah. That's basically Pegasus.
Yeah. So like Pegasus has rigged the game completely in his favor.
Yep. Then we already mentioned Joey has the Red Eyes Black Dragon is his like main most powerful monster.
Yeah,
Um
which he beats Rex Raptor, who I believe is a multi-time champion.
Yeah. And
And
it's hilarious though that, because like his deck has way more potential with like the fucking Mr. Time or whatever, the freaking like clock,
the time wizard.
the time wizard, right? And then like, making the baby dragon turn into the ancient dragon, like that's like way cooler than the red eyes black dragon.
It's also the same strength.
Yes. And I mean eventually he gets like the red eyes steel dragon or some shit like that or skull
Yeah,
dragon.
Yeah, he gets to do the Black Skull Dragon,
Black Skull
which
Dragon.
is
Yeah,
the coolest version of that of the Red Eyes anyway. I
yeah,
know like the Black Meteor Dragon is one of the more powerful ones, at least in the OG days. I have no idea what it is now because they have so many the synchro and the fusion and some other stuff that I never heard of.
yeah,
But like there's a million different types of red eyes black dragons now that are probably like if we looked at it, we would probably like poop a little bit because of just how freaking like OP these things are compared to what we were used to.
yeah.
But back in the day, the Black Skull Dragon was like the best version of this, and it's still, I think, to me, is the coolest version of it because the Summon Skull was always my favorite card.
Yeah, the Summon Skull was a cool one. I always kind of liked the Dark Magician, which was Yugi's like main guy, and then, you know, he eventually it's like upgrade Chaos Mage or whatever. Um,
Yeah, the Magician of Black Chaos.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, I always thought that was cool, the Dark Magician. Um, but yeah, I mean, Yugi's deck had kind of like a lot of cool cards, like the Black Skull Dragon, the Celtic Warrior, like there was a lot of cool cards that he had, like the combination with Karibo and Multiply. And then I love
Yeah,
like how he, combines like the Living Arrow with Mammoth Graveyard, and that somehow makes like Kaiba's dragon melt, which makes no sense at all. Um,
yeah, I don't know. There's some weird stuff that happens in the show.
yeah.
None of
And
it is
again, it doesn't
explained.
follow anywhere close to the actual card game.
No, it couldn't be farther from the truth.
So, uh, basically, Yugi's the main character, so obviously his deck is going to be pretty OP. Um, Taya, she had kind of it was like everyone had like a stereotypical deck. Like Taya had like a girl deck. It was full of like fairies and shit like that, and like harpies.
Yeah, and was
Uh,
not good.
no, and then you had like Rex
Well,
Raptor, who
Mai's
only used
thing was
dinosaurs, and his name was Rex Raptor.
yeah, go figure. Well, my Valentine, like, of course, was like all
A
like
slut.
harpies and yeah, it was like all harpies and succubus and
Yeah,
stuff
that's
like
right. She
that.
was the harpies, and then Taya was like fairies and
Yeah,
shit like that.
yeah, that's right. Tristan
Yeah,
was just, I'm not really sure, just
nobody. I don't
things.
think he ever really fucking dueled. He was just there.
I think he like maybe dueled one time, and like
Yeah,
I don't really know why or how. I guess they just made him win because everybody gets to win.
yeah,
But he by far had the worst deck. They had Weevil, who kind of looks like a bug, and his whole thing was insects. Which
yeah.
he had the Great Moth, which was like really freaking good.
And then you had Rex Raptor, whose whole thing was dinosaurs. You had Mako
Yeah,
Tsunami, whose whole thing was water and ocean monsters.
yeah, because he makes a tsunami
Yeah,
and
and
he
then
talks to the ocean, which is weird.
the ocean says yes.
Yeah, everybody had their own like gimmick.
Bandit Keith, who's like the most American man ever made. Like he wears like an American flag bandana, and he's literally supposed to be like what Japanese people think actual Americans look like.
I mean, he's not too far off. Just like a buff blonde guy who wears like a denim vest
A denim vest and a fucking American flag
and
bandana.
sunglasses inside.
Yeah,
Like he wears his sunglasses at night. Like that's who
he
he is.
definitely does.
Oh my god, there's something called the Meteor Black Comet Dragon. I have no idea what that even means. They went ham on with like a lot of these like drag with like the fusions, and I'm not gonna. I don't know what they do. It just yeah, like when it says card effect types, it just says trigger like twice. I don't know what the hell that means.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll get into that next week.
Yep. Uh yeah, so everyone was really stereotyped about what,
Oh yeah, you did also have like some I forgot what the guy's name. I think his name was like Panic or something, but like he had just like graveyard stuff and they were all like
yeah.
zombies.
Yeah, I think it was like Panic. I think you're literally exactly right. I think that was his actual name. And he was a zombie guy.
Yeah, I mean, go at least they're good on continuity.
Yeah, so I think they kind of cleaned up like the stereotypical fucking Power Rangers villains in like the Battle City tournament. Like more of the Battle City people were just like regular duelists that had good cards, not like fucking themed decks based on their personality type. Like,
Yeah, they were
uh,
pretty normal.
yeah. And then you had like, Marek and his gang, which were like, a bunch of weirdos and cultists and shit like that. And Merrick was like this evil spirit that was like he was like the big bad of like the Egyptian times, and he came back to fight Yami again. It's like a whole thing.
Yeah,
um, it's way too much to explain in like one podcast.
yeah,
Uh,
it's very confusing.
but yeah, there was definitely some, and again, it's a kids show in the early 2000s, so like, of course, everything is going to be like as stereotyped as possible because that was just like the time. There was
Hmm.
always like just like, oh, this is the Bug Man. Oh, this is the dinosaur. Like every show had some kind of stupid gimmick like that. All the villains.
Yeah,
So
you
it
could
was
not
just a sign
avoid
of the
it.
times, basically.
Yeah, you couldn't avoid it. It was just that was just what you got.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it was a good show. It's one of those like nostalgic shows where if you go back and watch it, like, yeah, it's not great. It's a show made very clearly made for kids, and it has not aged well. But it's like you get that hit of nostalgia from it. It's like you don't get that really from any like a lot of things anymore. And Yu-Gi-Oh is definitely one of those things for me at least. Especially like the theme song, because the theme song slapped the intro.
Oh
Um,
yeah, it was badass.
it was so fucking good. We would just like play it on friggin' repeat over and over and over again because of how good it was. Uh,
Yeah, it was very cool.
yeah.
Oh yeah, also one other thing is in the anime, Pegasus murders Bandit Keith, by the way,
Oh
who
yeah.
also is trying to murder Pegasus.
Yeah. But I think he comes back to life in the Battle City tournament or something.
I I I think I guess in the American one. Yeah, because he would appear yeah, I'm looking at this thing. He would use yeah, Pegasus murders him. Like he gives him so what we see is he gives him like in the American one, he activates a trapdoor which he goes into the ocean. In the manga version, um Pegasus uses his Millennium Eye to force him to shoot himself in the head.
Oh yeah.
Like we said, the manga is way darker.
Yeah. Um yeah. It was way darker.
Yeah.
And again, they could have put a lot of that stuff on a kid show. But it's hilarious because I used to read Shonen Jump in high school, and I was like I would read Yu-Gi-Oh and be like, "Wow, this is way different than the show."
Yeah. Oh, Bones is the guy who does the zombie stuff too.
Oh yeah, Bones. Okay, yeah. There wasn't Panic, I thought though.
No, there is a guy named Panic.
Okay.
But
Um
yeah, anyway.
yeah, so I mean, it overall was a pretty good show. And, not again, doesn't really hold up as well now, but for the time period it was good. And I don't know, I have a lot of good memories of watching it on Saturday mornings.
Oh, I'm not saying I didn't have a good time when it was on. I like when it was on, I loved that show and I like it's probably that's the main thing that really I would say got me into playing card games. Like
Yeah.
Pokemon got me into collecting the trading cards, but I didn't learn how to play until like the Yu-Gi-Oh stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean even today I mean I'll talk about this next time, but I have like a sealed like thing of like spell ruler like that I'm staring at right now and like just like a sealed box of it, which I do not plan to open. It's a 25th anniversary like box. I'll tell the story next time
Yeah.
as to like, but you know, it's just it's just a cool thing. Like but it was like neat just going to tournaments like at like a Toys R Us and
Yeah.
like yeah, I kind of got my butt handed to me, but also like it was also just fun.
Yeah.
Like or like just meeting up with like my friends after school and we knew exactly what we were going to do.
Yeah.
So like we just play in the backyard for hours of just playing cards and like we get really into it. We'd like almost imitate the show
Yeah.
with like the enthusiasm.
Yeah.
It was just fun.
To this day, when I play Magic the Gathering and I'm like, like getting my ass kicked, I'm always like, and I need like a really good pull on my next draw. I'm always like, gotta trust in the heart of the cards.
Yeah. I was telling my wife that before and she was like, "What is Heart of the Cards?" And I was like, "It only works in the show." And she's like,
Yeah.
"Well," she was like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "It's when you have no moves left and you have to and your top deck is going to be the thing that turns the tide and you just have to have faith
Yeah.
that it'll just be there." And in the show, it's always there. And she's like, "What about in real life?" I'm like, "Oh no, you pretty much lose."
Yeah.
Every time it is never there. And I know some of you are just like, "Well, you just didn't have enough heart." That may be, stranger person, but it doesn't work as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I've seen Heart of the Cards work better in poker and blackjack than it has in any actual trading card game. So I don't know. Maybe they have more faith in poker and blackjack. Probably because they are gambling with real money and houses and cars and families and things like that. I'm sure there's somebody in Vegas right now who just made a really bad bet and will never see their family again. They're not going to be murdered. They just can't go home. Like their
Yeah.
wife belongs to someone else now. And she's probably okay with it because she's probably tired of her husband Richard's gambling problem.
Oh God.
And they're probably pretty relieved. Richard will still have to pay child support for the kids, even though they will also be going home with a new daddy, which they also kind of appreciate because this daddy is a winner.
Yeah.
So they're going to know what it's like to have to live in a winner's house. Just a house of champions. And then their deadbeat, loser, gambling addicted dad, Richard, will just be continuing to fail at life, all because he didn't believe in the heart of the cards.
Yeah.
So that's Richard's sad tale. Who is Richard also is a dick. Whether that's because his name is Richard or just because that's how he is, that's up for you to decide. But the best way to watch the Yu-Gi-Oh animated series, which will always hold up, is to watch is to just go on Yu-Gi-Oh and just to go on Yu-Gi-Oh to go on YouTube and watch the Yu-Gi-Oh the abridged series.
Yes.
It's so goddamn funny. So
It's hilarious.
what that is just like this guy who's like the channel is Little Karibo. This dude like in earlier days of the internet and better times of the internet when people went on to find funny things, really cool flash games that other people made, and also just to like help people they didn't know and
Yeah.
to like meet people that did cool things. In the earlier days of the internet when it was pure and fun and neat, people would make weird fan dubs of shows, and oftentimes they would either be better than the original or they would be hilarious. This was intentionally hilarious, and it is still like it gets
Yes.
funnier every time.
Yeah.
So you need to check this out. Like for example, like anytime My Valentine shows up on screen, there's always just like some like really ridiculous like perverted like related joke, or just like something like, "Oh, breasts, we can't hear you," and or like Yugi is always an idiot, and for some reason, like and like they always really like dive into like Joey's mysterious Brooklyn accent, which that is the
Yes.
weirdest thing about
Yeah.
Joey, is that he like everyone else has this normal accent, and for some random reason that is never explained, he just like has a Brooklyn accent.
Well, they also make fun of the fact that Tristan sounds like Barney,
Yeah, kind of.
which is hilarious because the original voice of Tristan didn't sound like that. I think it was like later seasons. All of a sudden, he was like, "Oh," he sounded like fucking Barney.
Yeah,
And also, the Bridge series really makes fun of the fact that the show is not anywhere near what the actual card game is.
yeah.
There's the one scene when Yugi is facing Kaiba, and Kaiba summons all three of his blue eyes at once. And Yugi goes, "Did you just summon a bunch of monsters in one turn?" And Kaiba's like, "Yeah, so what?" He's like, "That you can't do that. That's against the rules." And Kaiba's just like, "Screw the rules. I have money." Um, and a similar thing happens. They brought Little Karibo on to do a guest voice for Team Four Star for Dragon Ball Z the Abridged series. During the Cell games, they did a whole series of little sketches where all these different anime characters come to face Cell while he's waiting for like the Z fighters to be ready in the middle of the ring in the desert. So so there's one where Yugi comes to face him, and he's of course voiced by Little Karibo, and tries to play Cell in Duel Monsters, but like the show away. And Cell pulls out the actual Duel Monsters like rule book, and he's like, "Oh, you can't do that. Oh, this card is banned. So is this one. Like Monster Reborn, like all these cards Yugi had, he can't use because they're all on the ban list."
Yeah.
And they like spend like hours like trying to play an actual game of Duel Monsters, and Yugi just like quits and walks away because he like gets so fed up about it.
Oh, we did also forget to mention that the so Yugi's deck really doesn't do a whole lot of other things, but he is just somehow magically able to get all these like cool monsters, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the one thing that he has is like, well, like everybody kind of has their trump card too, basically. So like
Uh-huh.
Kaiba's thing is the crush card, where he like it's just like the crush virus, where like it just basically kills anything with an attack high, like with a high attack, so that he could
Yeah.
just like wipe out everyone's best monsters, and then like he like leaves he so that he could just like annihilate them with the blue eyes stuff,
Which
which is a
again,
pretty solid strategy. Um,
it's
where
also
like
again, I'm pretty sure he created the card himself. Like
yeah, I
he's
believe
like
he
one of
did.
those like, "Oh, I'm just gonna make this card that's OP as fuck for myself."
Yeah, there's no ban list in the show, which there
No.
should be, and it should be totally illegal to make up your own cards,
Yeah.
which to my which also makes me like question like if Yugi if Pegasus if Kaiba can like make his own cards and like make and like put them in tournaments and like become a world champion with this, and Pegasus could just make the entire deck as broken as humanly possible so that he has a 100% chance of winning, then like why doesn't anyone else do this?
Yeah, exactly.
Like why doesn't someone just like on the just like like how do they even register the decks? Like we're like there's no one whoever like checks it and says, "Oh, this card's banned. You can't use it."
Well, they
It's
can't
just
because
like
they're like Pegasus owns the fucking Duel Monsters company, and Kaiba owns the company that makes the technology for Duel
so
Monsters.
did they just make like a did they just make like a gentleman's agreement where like okay, fine, you can make you can make your own cards and I'll just make all of mine because I own this thing,
Yeah,
and we'll just do that since I need your technology. I'll let you make your own shit up too.
I guess so.
I guess that's what billionaires do, so that kind of tracks.
Yeah,
They just kind of like play by their own rules, quite literally in this case. But like, who's to stop anybody else from doing it? We've never seen a penalty for anything like that on the
that's true.
show. So couldn't like couldn't Joey just like make up a bullshit card on the spot and just like and just play it? And like
Well,
the rules of the card is it just destroys everything in the other person's deck, and the other person would just be like, "Whoa, I've never heard of that card," and
yeah.
it's like and like that's it.
Well, the hilarious thing is that like later on when we get the Egyptian god cards, that's basically what they are. Like
Yeah.
they're like these obscenely broken cards that like again Kaiba created for himself, but then somehow like it's I forget what how they fucking like explain it, but the cards got lost and then Kaiba gets the fucking Obelisk the Tormented back and Yugi gets what Slifer the Sky Dragon
Yeah.
and I think Marek ends up with the Golden Dragon of Ra or
The
whatever.
winged dragon of
The
Ra,
Winged
I
Dragon of
believe.
Ra, yeah.
Yeah. And these are like supposedly the strongest cards ever created. But
Which they literally are. But
yeah, which Yugi has a couple of trump cards where like it's like the Swords of Revealing Light, which sets you back a turn. I think that's like one of the few cards that actually works the same way in the
yeah,
card game. There's
yeah,
very few cards that actually work the way that they do in the show that and in the real card game. This is one of them.
yeah,
There's of course Mirror Force, which one of the coolest cards ever. Monster Reborn, which I think all of these cards are all banned now.
yeah. Monster
Um,
Reborn is
yeah, because there were too many turn zero broken combos with it, which we'll get
yes,
into in the next episode.
yeah,
Um, and but like the big one is the five pieces of Exodia, which Exodia is like the real strong. It's like the strongest thing ever.
yeah.
Like where you were like you own like once you have it in your hand, you win.
You
Like if
win
you
by
have the
default.
five, yeah,
Yes,
you win by default. But like the pieces of their own are like useless and incredibly weak. But once
yeah.
you have all five of them, it's like incredibly like you just win.
But again, before there was a banned list, there was a really OP combo that people would use to get
Yes,
Exodia on turn zero. We'll talk about that next week.
yes,
But basically Exodia is as rigged as in the real game as he is in the show. The only difference is that in the real game you have to be really lucky to actually get all five cards in your hand at once, which is like if you have a deck that's 60 cards, it's very low chance.
yeah. Wasn't it
Um,
40?
it might be. I thought it was 40 in one of the video games, but I think the actual tournament rules was 60 if I remember correctly.
I
I,
don't
I
remember.
could be wrong
You
about that.
might be right. I really don't remember. But yeah, it was like yeah. So Exodia was like the most broken thing, and also the coolest the coolest fighting animation to
Yeah,
see it summoned and then like do its just obliteration blast and everything.
yeah, and he
Really
just
fun to
kills everything.
see.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, just a total murdering badass. And now there's like a bunch of different Exodias too. So like I
yeah,
don't know. But yeah, there's a ton of cool stuff with that one, and that's kind of the show in a nutshell. Nothing
yeah,
really makes sense. Very little works the way that it's supposed to. Um, and there's always some cards that you were always just like, why isn't that stronger?
yeah,
Like I feel like Gaia the Fierce Knight should have been a little bit stronger, but
yeah. There's a couple
it's too bad.
that are like, wow, this is like a shitty card. Like it's like in the show it looks cool, but then like you actually play a game that has the card, and you're like, wow, this is actually a piece of shit. Why did I think this was good?
Yeah, like Flame Swordsman was not particularly good.
Yeah, and there was a couple of even like the Celtic Warrior is like an okay like early game monster just to have on the board, but like by late game you better have something better out there.
Yeah. I mean, and after like the first two sets, it was like pretty obsolete anyway.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I think it was only good within the first set when there was nothing else to compare it to.
yeah, exactly. Yu-Gi-Oh is so much different now that it doesn't even you would if you had that in your deck you'd be an idiot basically.
It's impossible to to recognize the game that you're playing anymore outside of the
Yes.
artwork. Like
Yeah.
that's how much it's changed.
Yeah.
And if you can't like it's also if you need cataract surgery, do not play this game.
Yeah, because the fucking effect monsters are like it's like you have to freaking have like a microscope to see the text and read this novel that's printed on the front of the card.
Yeah, it's insane. We will get into that part next time, but thank you all for listening to us ramble about this show. Uh,
Yes.
that like this has been why does this exist? If there's something that if there's something we didn't cover that really pisses you off that we didn't talk about, like your favorite English character Bakura, well, sorry. Let us know in the comments, or just like yell at us via email or something, or just get in our Discord and tell us we did a very bad job and you hate us, but even though you gave us money to join the Discord, you hated it. Make sure that you hated us that much to just give us $1 so that you can yell at us. That I want to see that level of distrust.
Yeah.
Just like Wizards of the Coast, you'll hate us, but you'll give us money.
Yeah.
All right. This has been Why Does This Exist? I've been Chris.
And I've been Rob.
And remember, question everything.
Good night, everybody.
We'll see you next week when we talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! The trading card game and other spin off products.
Yeah.
All right. Bye bye.